This is episode 67, and in today's episode, I'll be sharing with you the 5 biggest reasons couples are unhappy and unfulfilled in their marriages. Now, before we dive into the topic, I want to let you know that what you will be hearing is a recording I did for my YouTube channel. So you'll hear me mention the phrase in this video. Now, if you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, you might want to do so. And when you do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. One of the highlights of the channel is the recent viral video that has over 1 million views and hundreds of comments. And in visiting that channel, my channel, you'll see why that video, it's a short, so it's really 15 seconds long, but it's amazing how this has just really gone viral. But you can also see that there. So that's one of the reasons I would encourage you. Plus all the other videos I've done there and other shorts I've done there that you can also see as well. So I think it'd be a great thing to check out the channel. Now, because I know that I would be making this recording into a podcast, you'll hear me mention in the video, in this audio, you'll hear me use the word, talk about the podcast there as well. So when you hear that, recognize I was speaking to the video audience, the YouTube audience. And so I mentioned that so that they can also see, check out the podcast. So stay tuned for what is to come.
Hello and welcome to the Happier Marriage Podcast, a podcast for spouses longing to have a happier marriage so they can feel more connected, desired and supported. Now, to start the show, here is your host and Sherpa, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified relationship coach, Kingsley Grant.
Now, thanks for joining me today. I'm very appreciative of you being here, and this means a lot to me. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the 5 biggest reasons couples are unhappy and unfulfilled in their marriage. Now, reasons number 4 and 5 are 2 of the biggest ones that lead to divorces or separation in marriages. So you'll see why I say that when you listen all the way through. Also, you'll hear me use a few biblical references to unpack some of these reasons because I think it's so appropriate to do that. Now, with that said, listen with an open mind because I guarantee you're going to hear a perspective you've never heard before.
So, the big question is this. How is it possible that you have a happier marriage when you feel like you've tried everything? Your spouse isn't making an effort. You're exhausted. You feel like giving up. Or there's so much hurt that's taken place between you and your spouse. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
Now, before I step back and let you hear the podcast episode for today, can I ask you to do me a huge favor? Would you please share this episode with 1 or 2 of your married friends? I would greatly appreciate it. So without further ado, let us dive in and remember, this is the audio from the video recording. Hello, Sparkins. Kingsley Grant here from Happier Marriage Secrets, where we are on a mission to make marriages happier again. And today we're going to talk about the 5 biggest reasons couples are not having a happy marriage or even a fulfilled marriage. And these reasons are common, but they're also destructive to many relationships. But here's the good news. They can be overcome with hard work and dedication. And I believe that you are here because you are one of those who is committed to the hard work. You're not afraid of hard work. You want to see your marriage succeed. You want to see the best you can have. You want to see the best marriages you can have possible. So I believe that you're here because of that very reason. So I'm going to explain each reason in detail, and I'll give you some tips for addressing each one. So if you're looking to improve your marriage, which I believe that's why you're here, then this video is for you. Now, for you, my podcast listeners, this is episode 67, and you'll need to watch this video to see some of what I'll be talking about today. And you might be wondering, why did I use the word sparking as a way to greet you, as to open up? Now, I came up with the word sparking because I believe that there are spouses like yourself who are focused on putting your marriage back together. You want to put the spark back into your marriage. And I believe that you have, that's one of the things you're committed to, right? And so sparking represents that. Sparking represents a person who is committed to that. It also have other values associated with the word sparking. So I'll tell you more about that in the future. So hang around and you'll hear me share more about that. So let's get into today's topic on the 5 biggest reasons couples are not happy or fulfilled in their marriages, right? Unhappy and unfulfilled. Now, if you're watching because you feel your marriage could be happier, which I think, as I said before, as we go through the reasons, today's 5 reasons, check the one in your mind. Just, run a checklist in your mind that is true for your marriage, and listen to what you can do to make the changes to address those issues in your marriages. Now, let me just say this, that these 5 reasons are not in any particular order, so you can feel free to reorder them to fit your situation. Okay, with that said, let's dive in. Reason number 1, and this is a big one, right? Frequent arguments and misunderstandings. Now, you know how sometimes you and your partner just can't seem to agree on anything. It seems like every little thing. I can't tell you the amount of times in my work as a marriage and family therapist and as a relationship coach. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, where a couple may say to me that we argue about everything. We just can't see eye to eye. Everything turns into an argument. It seems like every little thing turns into an argument, they'll say. And that's no fun, right? It's not a fun. That's not a fun way to live. It's not a fun way to have a relationship. That is draining. That is stressful. That is, creates anxiety and depression and all the different mental and emotional disorders you can name. So it's not a fun thing. Now, many times in these arguments, there are things that are happening that are so destructive to the relationship. For example, there's blaming. That is a big one. Blaming is a huge part of people's relationships dissolving, deteriorating. Why? Because people don't like to be blamed. Because there's somebody saying, well, what about you? What about you? And this on back and forth kind of thing happens. So when there's blaming or shaming, trying to shame the other person into somehow changing them or even degrading. Man, I cannot tell you where I've had a spouse who may say to me, I felt so embarrassed and shamed and degraded when my spouse called me this name. And, I won't mention the name here, but you can just imagine that they'll say they called me this, right? And sometimes is that word that ends with, that which. So they'll use that word, or they'll use a part of a person's anatomy, a female anatomy to describe, to call their spouse. I'm thinking, I can't believe, are you saying he or she called you that? They literally use that word. They say, yes. I mean, Kingsley, when I heard it, it was so crushing and degrading and humiliating, and you name it, all the different things that happen when that argument begins, and it just escalates, right? And especially if there is not a willingness on one partner to decide, I'm going to be the bigger person here. I'm going to be the person that chooses to manage this in a mature and emotionally intelligent way. And so if they don't do that, right, you're going to have this escalation. I love what the Proverbs said, where Solomon said in the Bible, he said, a gentle answer or a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. That's Proverbs 15, verse 1. A gentle answer. And I know sometimes in the heat of the moment, when you're emotionally hijacked, it's hard to think straight. It's hard to see clearly because your mind is hijacked emotionally, and you get into that space where it's hard to even manage your emotions, right? You've been there, haven't you? And so it's very hard. But Solomon says it's where your self-discipline and emotional intelligence comes into play, where you have, emotional regulation. You regulate your emotion. You have self-control. And again, I love what the Bible says. God has given you a spirit of self-control. So you can't blame that, that's who I am. I just, go from 0 to 100 like that. Yes, you can help it. You just don't want to. You choose not to help it because you find it serves a purpose for you. It gives you an upper hand. It makes you feel like, you're powerful, and your spouse needs to, when you're actually in that rage manner, they want to get out of your way. And so you use it to get what you want. And sometimes people label that as being narcissistic. I just simply say, no, it's a person who chooses not to control themselves because they want to have an upper hand, and they want to manipulate or manage that situation where they, overpower you and get you to like back up and just get into your corner. And that's what they want. So understand that in frequent arguments and misunderstandings, another one is misunderstanding, where you hear something the way you want to hear that. And maybe the person, your spouse, is not saying what you heard, but you choose to hear it that way, and then you're off to the races. Did not check in to make sure what you heard was what was actually said, right? So if you have an argument, try to stay calm. A soft answer, a gentle answer turns away wrath. Stay calm as possible. Now, I know a person may say, don't tell me to stay calm. Now, listen, it's before you get into that situation, have a plan of action that you're going to remain calm and respectful. You are going to do the things that are respectful of your spouse, of your marriage, and honoring to God. So don't say things that you're going to regret later. Reason number 2, feeling unappreciated or taken for granted. This is a big one. Another common reason, right? Because they feel like they're not appreciated. When one partner feels like, they've done as much as they could or can, and no one acknowledges that. I've heard a spouse will say to me, man, I feel like I'm just the money bag. I feel like I'm not even recognized in my house, and no appreciation. Now, it may not be true or real, but that's how they feel. And how a person feels, their perspective, their perception on things is their reality. Does not make it the reality, but to them, it feels that way. And because, think about a time when you've worked really hard on something, but no one said thank you. I'll give you a quick example. My wife and my daughter and myself, we were trying to clean out our garage, finally. But on the floor, there is this vinyl, linoleum kind of flooring that's been there for years. It's been baked into the cement and the concrete. And what I had to do was go to one of the Home Depot and rent a machine that it's like a machine that's, I forget what it's called. It's called a scraper machine. And with that, and it's a, good sized garage, a two-car garage. So you can imagine. And it's all on the whole floor is covered by that. And so my wife and my daughter, because I'm handling the machine, and it's like, a huge machine, right? And some parts come up very easy, other parts it's baked in, and the machine had to dig and dig and dig and scrape, eventually gets up. But my wife and my daughter was helping, and they had a machete, and each of them, and they were trying to, get the spot that are much easier and popping up that linoleum, the vinyl. And, I recognized at the end of the day that if I had to do the whole thing with a machine by myself, and I had a 1-day rental, so I had to get everything done and return in that one day. And of course, night came and I had to go to sleep. So I was so appreciative because I think about it, man, there's no way I could have gotten the whole thing done. But because they were helpful and, digging up their parts and doing their part, at the end, I just had to say to them, thank you. I truly appreciate your help because I could never have done this by myself. Now, they really were just wanting to be helpful and like a teamwork, right? Because we're all living in the same house. I could say, hey, it's all, we're all living here. So, why not? But no, I recognize that it's something that I took on as a project and they came alongside. And I really appreciated that so much. So I just say thank you. Because what happened is they, even though they didn't say anything, but they could probably think that, man, we helped dad or helped, honey, my honey, my wife would say. And he just acted as if it wasn't helpful. But I try to find a way to do that. Now, I'm not trying to use myself and say, hey, I always get it right, because there's times I overlook and miss opportunities like we all do. But if you've worked real hard at something and no one said thank you, that may make you feel a bit sad, right? Or at least you take notice about that. The Bible says, give thanks in all circumstances. So it means we should appreciate each other, even for small things. So we can find a way to say thank you. Now, I know that Bible verse refers to a lot more than just, saying thank you to our family member or someone who's helped us out. It has a lot more there. So, could unpack that. But in this one, in our context here, give thanks in all circumstances. Find a way to say thanks to your spouse, to your family member, to that neighbor, to your coworker, to your classmate, whatever it is. Have they done something for you? Or have you done something and felt the sting of no one even recognized the effort you put in? So if you want your partner to feel appreciated, make sure you're showing them love and kindness. Say thank you often, right? Again, my wife and I, each day we'll have a cup of tea or a coffee. And most times, I get up earlier and I'm ahead, so I'll make coffee. And she'd always say thank you, or my if she did it, I'll say thank you. It's like it's second nature for us now. Now I cannot tell you it all, we always hit the mark. No, but we've practiced that, and we've been married 38 years of this recording. So something is working, wouldn't you say? So saying thank you without being asked, do something nice. And notice the things that they do for you. I'll give you a quick another thing that really stood out to me. My wife was out, shopping, and recently, and actually she was stopped at a store, and she just was on her way home. She stopped at this one store, and she called me. She said, honey, do you need any more shorts? Because I exercise as often as I can. I said, I have quite a few, but I could use a couple more if they're on sale, right? Because again, we are pretty frugal. We try our best to be good stewards of the money that God has blessed us with. So we just don't go and squander things just because we have an extra money. So I said to her, if you find something there on sale, then please, of course, get it. The fact that she would call me and ask me means that she was thinking about me and she recognized that I may have a need. And I've done something similar for her as well. But I'm just simply saying these are some small things. And I believe that these small things go a long way. Reason number 3, failing to adapt to changing life circumstances. If you've been married long enough, there have been changing life circumstances for you. For us, when we first, our major one was when we first had our first child. That was a major alteration in our lives because now we are parents, young parents, and we had no idea. Of course, you never know how to parent until you start parenting. No matter what books you read, no matter what anybody tells you, right? You know that. It's when you get into it, you think, man, I wish somebody had told me this, right? I wish I had known that. But, there's no manual given to you other than hands-on manual. And so we had to adjust because my wife, for the first child, we decided, okay, how can she stay home with our son as long as possible. So we made adjustment in our salary because I became the sole breadwinner for our family. We had to make ends meet. And when, I'm going to have another reason down below, but I wanted to say this about our finances. And we had to really adjust and find a way to our sleeping adjustment because we were not getting our adequate sleep. I can't tell you how sometimes people complain about, man, I'm not getting enough rest because my child is up different times of the night and I got to be on their schedule. And then the daytime they're up crying. And listen, you signed up to be a parent. That is what you do. You make the adjustment. You make the sacrifice. That's what parents do. And so you've got to learn how to be able to adjust and adapt because this can put great stress on the relationship, great stress on your marriage. Actually, I've seen people have divorced because of a child. Maybe it's a child who had special needs. And, sadly, some family who have special needs kids, 70% of more of those couples end up divorcing. And, I just cannot imagine what that must be like. But because, again, they just don't, it's like our selfish nature. When you got married, you said, for health and strength, health, lack of health, and all the different things you commitment you make for your marriage, the vows that you make, right? But here's what I find, again, you made a loss of a job. I remember when in 2008, when I had a major open heart surgery and I could not work for months. My wife was the only person bringing in the income. And I was a major breadwinner prior to my surgery. And I was home and I did my best when I had a chance to rehab, to my rehabilitation. And I was able to cook when she's out working to at least trying to alleviate the pressure or the stress of our relationship. And I find that I felt bad that my wife had to be working, but I could not because I was recovering from my heart surgery. And so what happened is that major adjustment, we had to find a way to adjust around that because it could put great stress and resentment in our marriage. I love what the Bible says that, we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose in Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. And I had to believe that, even though I was going through a hard time physically and, of course, emotionally and mentally too of that surgery, and also when my wife had to stay home for, quite a good part of 2 years in our first child, we had to realize that God is working things out. And he gifted us with his children. He brought me through the surgery and I survived an open heart surgery. So I got to look for what is it that God wants to teach us? How can we learn to depend upon him and depend upon each other? These circumstances may be opportunity, not obstacles, to make you a better person and make your relationship a better relationship. So if you work together as a team, you can adapt to any change that comes into your life. Okay. Now, before I share with you the last two reasons, and let me say, you don't want to miss hearing reason number 4, because that's a major one. So I'll say in a few moments, I'll share that with you. But please oblige me to share a few important announcements that I believe will be helpful to you and your relationship, your marriage. First, let me ask that you hit the subscribe button. If you've not yet done so, it's one of those ways for this channel to reach a broader audience, and YouTube will see the numbers of subscription and help to spread this out to more people. So please help me with that, and I appreciate that so very much. Secondly, I do have a podcast I heard me mention earlier. It's called the Happier Marriage Secrets Podcast, where you can access a number of topics I've already talked about that pertains to marriage and will help you. I have some interview there as well. You can also avail yourself to those and hear those as well. It will truly be an asset to your marriage at Happier Marriage Secrets, and it's available on wherever you can listen to a podcast. Thirdly, if you would like to a way to assess the health of your marriage and you're not really certain, there's some question marks in your head right now in your marriage, then you may want to take the Happier Marriage Assessment Quiz, which can truly give you a feel of where the health of your marriage, where it's at, and have a good feel of that. You can access that quiz at happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz, happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz, and you'll find all the links below in the description that follows. That's following this video. And if you're new to this channel and is a little curious about who I am to be hosting this channel and speaking the way that I do, let me just share with you briefly that I'm Kingsley Grant. You heard me mention earlier. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of couples over the last 2 decades and have countless numbers of them who have been helped in their relationship, their marriage, as a result of the work that I've done with them. And I've been married for 38 years as of this recording, with 2 adult children. I'm also a published author of a few books available on Amazon. And so some of what I'm talking about, and you hear me today, is from a personal and professional experience. Now, what are the last 2 reasons couples are unhappy and unfulfilled in their marriages? Well, number 4, lack of trust. Lack of trust. This is a big one. Now, I'm going to say this one towards the end because I believe that I didn't want to start with this as heavy as this one, because lack of trust, I believe if there's no trust in your relationship, in your marriage, then you don't have a marriage. This is one of the hallmark, the core cornerstone of every marriage, trust. When there's no trust in a marriage, it can be really difficult to feel close and connected to your partner. Am I correct? It is tremendously difficult because trust is a driver of marriages, of relationships. And when that's gone, it's very, very difficult to keep the marriage going. Trust can be, violated in so many different ways. One of the major ways that come to people's mind is infidelity. When there's when the relationship is broken because of an infidelity, it's hard to trust. Now, can trust be regained? Yes. I have worked with couples who have experienced that in their relationship and seen their relationship become better than it was before, right? It's a process, but it's possible. And so that is one of the major ones that come to mind. But another big one out there is when you can't trust your partner to have your back. You feel like you don't know if he or she will take a stand for you when the going gets tough. For example, if they're with their in-law situation, will they stand with you or their family members? Will they stand with you or a friend? Will they choose you over a friend? You feel like you can't trust that your spouse to have your back. And so you have this, kind of not sure certainty in your marriage. And that can really weaken the foundation of your marriage. Also in trusting God for your marriage as well. I cannot tell you how many people, when I say to them, listen, you may not be able to trust your partner right now, but can you trust God right now to be the one that will help you to rebuild trust in your marriage? I love that Solomon says in Proverbs 3 verse 5, one of my favorite scripture verses. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean upon your own understanding. The problem is many times we tend to lean upon what we understand to be how things should be. We might miss what God is doing. So if I can trust God with my spouse and my situation, then I can truly have a better way to remain healthy and hopeful for my marriage, right? So if you want to build trust in your relationship, it's possible. It's important, of course, to trust God. It's also important to be honest with each other. Keep your promises and be open and transparent, especially when there's trust have been violated. It's important that you rebuild trust with transparency. Okay, and I do not want to not mention here. Get help. Seek a professional to help you in this process, to walk you through in this area as well. Because trust is a hallmark, I believe, one of the core foundations for every marriage. So learn how to trust. And again, I want to say this, before I go to number 5, that trust can be rebuilt. Too many times people say, hey, I don't trust him, I don't trust her. And I don't believe that. You may not trust them in one area of the relationship, but you do trust them to give you water, or to give you coffee, or to buy you this, or to buy you that. So it's not that you don't trust them. There is an area, and that's why when I work with couples in my coaching or my counseling, I try to isolate the area that trust is broken and work on that. Because this broad feel of I don't trust, it truly blurs the idea of how to regain trust and how to get the relationship restarted. So it's possible, but you need somebody who understands this process to help you navigate that. But most importantly, stay on your knees and trust God. Number 5, this is one of the biggest ones that I believe. Now, all those are important, but this one here is where most marriages fail, and that's financial problems. Most marriages, or many marriages, have been dissolved. Divorce have occurred, and you may have heard that finances is one of the major and leading cause of divorces. Why? Because this is an area that really gets hit close to home, especially when you are maybe the person who the breadwinner. Even if you both are working, unless, here's what I find: until you're able to get past this idea of mine and yours, I see this so many times where this thinking is, I work, it's my money, and that's your money. That is not marriage. Marriage means ours, not mine and yours. It's ours. And most couples have not become ours in finances. They have this mine, yours mentality. And so they watch the money as if it's, my money is being spent, because that is a mentality shift that hasn't taken place as yet. It's a major source of stress and conflict. But I love what the Bible says, because I believe this is the crux of the matter. It says, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. So being content and sharing can help with money issues. And that's Hebrews 13, verse 5. When you're able to not let money control you, then you are able to navigate this area a whole lot easier. I love what Jesus says. He said, you can't love God and mammon or money. So money can become a god. And so when that becomes the case, you are serving an idol called money. And that's where most of the problems occur, right? And so the financial problems comes into place because there's a lack of accountability. There's no budgeting, the mine and yours mentality. And so when that happens, where people have not shifted from that mine yours thing, and that could go on and on. There's so much to unpack here, of course, but there's not enough time to unpack in this. This video could be for an hour, 2 hours, right, in this one topic. But I just want to just condense that and just mention in this areas as we go along here. So if you want to avoid financial problems, okay, number 1, learn to be content. Number 2, shift from mine, yours to ours. Number 3, make sure there's accountability, right? So, for example, my wife and I, when we in our early stage of our marriage, we set this idea where we said any amount over a certain, if we were going to spend a certain amount of money, we said we must consult each other, right? So I could not go and buy something at whim, or she did, without first consulting, as long as it's beyond a certain amount of money. So we could spend as much as we can, not as much as we wanted to, but with consideration, we could spend and not worry about having to consult under a certain amount of money. When it became a large item purchase, we need to talk about it first. Why? Because we want to make sure that the budget can sustain it, and 2, we want to hold each other accountable. And so this is a huge area, and again, as you can tell, I could unpack this in so many different places. But I want to encourage you to learn to live within your means. Okay. Try to have a budget. Sit down and have a budget. Don't spend more than you take in. Don't spend more than you take in. Don't try to keep up with your neighbors or they call the Joneses, because they're doing this and they're doing that. You need to do no. See what your financial situation is and live within your means. Okay. Now, these 5 reasons I believe could derail your marriage, right? And you need to be able to manage them and not let them manage you. Reason number one again was frequent arguments and misunderstandings. Reason number 2, feeling unappreciated or taken for granted. Reason number 3, failing to adapt to changing life situations. Reason number 4, lack of trust. Okay, lack of trust. And reason number 5, financial problems. So I'd love to hear from you. Which of these resonated more with you? Or any other comment or question you might have? Make sure you comment below and let's get into the conversation. Let's unpack more of this. You may have a question you would like to ask a question, or a comment you want to make. Feel free to comment below as well. Again, I just ask you to keep the comments in a very, appropriate manner and respectful manner. I really appreciate that when you do as well. And please share this video with at least one other spouse. Now, these are the 5 biggest reasons I believe why couples don't have a happy or fulfilled marriage. And I hope this video has given you some tips for addressing these reasons and creating a happy and fulfilling marriage, both from a biblical perspective, but also from just a relational, emotional, and mental perspective as well. Remember, it takes hard work and dedication to make a marriage work, but it's worth it. I've been here for 38 years and counting, and we have, I believe, a happy and fulfilled marriage because God has helped us to accomplish that, and we're committed to doing the work. I believe you too can have that if you're committed and you let God be the center of your marriage. With that said, my friend, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen and to watch. And please share this with another couple and make sure you hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate that so very much. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next video right here on this channel. God bless.
We've come to the end of another exciting show, and if you enjoyed this podcast, 1, make sure you give this show a rating and review. 2, subscribe to the show to get all new releases. And 3, get your complimentary copy of the 5 Secrets to a Happier Marriage ebook at kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. Again, it's kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. See the link in the show notes. Do it today. Don't delay. Thanks so much for listening, and make sure you tell one other spouse about this show, or better yet, share it with them. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face toward you and give you his peace, both now and forever.